Good morning, my creative friends. This is Dr. Manette Riordan, and this is Painting in Your PJs live with Manette, where we gather to talk about all things life, love, art, and I share my visual journaling process and other processes that I love. I am passionate about how our creative practice can really support us in our personal growth and development. It can bring more calm, more relaxation, more joy to our lives. It can bring a lot more play and fun to our lives, but it also creates really powerful ways to help us go underneath the surface to figuring out what's going on so we can make different choices about how we want to feel, how we want to spend our time, and how we can always carve out more time for art making. So, in yesterday's video, we looked at creating this sweet little zine out of one sheet of paper and folded it up into this sweet little book. So you can see we painted the whole page and then folded that up into this just nice little booklet. So if you want to learn how to make a cute little zine like this, it would make a great Valentine's gift for someone else. But this month we're talking about self love. And so mine was really focused on affirmations that reflect my relationship with myself. Each day I allow love for myself to grow more and more. The more I love myself, the better my entire health. This was a great one. Good morning, Nikki. My self esteem grows along with my self love. I love every moment of my existence. And I shrunk this photo down. I really loved this woman here with this beautiful bunch of flowers, and I can imagine that she's gifting herself these gorgeous roses. When I fully love myself, I am able to fully love others. And I shared a link in the description of yesterday's video to this list of affirmations in a Google Doc for printing. But I'm pretty pleased with how this cute little zine turned out. Good morning, Judy. Good morning, Nikki. Welcome, welcome. And what do you do with stuff like this, right? Like, so often we have so much fun creating little things like this, and then they end up just sort of floating around and cluttering up our studio. So, for something like this, I might actually keep it on my desk or on my art table for a while. So, I would actually flip through it and remember what it was that I was thinking about and present to. I've left a little bit of space in here where I could even go back and maybe do a little more journaling on some of these pages if I wanted to, maybe add a little more collage. Haven't decided yet if I want to add anything to the background, but I had fun after our call yesterday just with some Posca markers and my Stabilo marks all pencil, adding a little more and a little bit of Posca yellow here, just adding color, darkening up some of those marks. I love that I can still see my collage bits and my own handwriting on the pages. So what I love to do with little bits and pieces like this is to make pockets and tuck them into my journal. Or in this case, if I didn't do anything on in the back, I could actually glue the whole booklet to my journal and have it sit in my journal that way. But I'm a fan of pockets and I want to be able to take things out and use them differently. And a few weeks ago, I showed how to make this nice big pocket to tuck things into in our journals. I love pockets. Um, this is a pocket that is paper and fabric that I stitched and then stuck in my journal with some double stick tape. And I have some affirmation cards stuck in here. So you can see I have a lot of places where I have pockets in my journal. I think I had one more. Here's another one that I hand stitched and then adhered to tuck just some little extra bits of collage material into that'll get used for something else, and some little tags that I made, right? So there's so many fun ways to sort of expand the usability of your journal. So today what we're going to do is we're going to create kind of a like a library card pocket. And this is a template that I created. I'm going to walk you through creating this template and making it pretty and putting it in your journal. And so you might want a ruler, this is just a piece of printer paper or mixed media paper would work great, and then a pencil. And that's all you need to get started, and a glue stick for adhering the pocket to the journal. So we're going to create that pocket and make it pretty. And I think I want to go back in my journal and fill in some of these pages that I haven't filled in yet. And I'm feeling like I want that self-love journal to go right here with this Hamsa that we did at the beginning of the year. I should be putting dates on these so that I can remember. So before I create my pocket, I want to get a background going down on my page. And I want to create something that is going to stand out. Oh, I also have some this cute paper pad of just collage papers that a friend gifted to me, super cute. And these are probably going to get put on my front of my pocket for a little decoration. So when we think about color combinations and making things stand out, the complementary color, excuse me, to red is green. And I don't want it to be Christmassy, so I'm probably going to choose maybe a brighter lime green to paint the background. Now remember, I'm going to cover up a lot of this background with the pocket as well. But the first thing I want to do is just get something down on the page. And a friend of mine sent me this absolutely gorgeous tissue paper. I think I used some of that in my collage yesterday. So I'm thinking I'm actually just going to collage a piece of paper down on the background. And this one, I'm going to look for a piece and edge. This one looks pretty groovy here. And there's such an abundance of this. It's so beautiful. And so I'm going to take this edge. Oh, and look at that. It even has a heart on it. How appropriate is that? This is the first time that I've actually opened up an entire piece of it. So I'm just going to take my ruler and use my ruler is great for sort of marking off the edges of things. And I'm not trying to get it perfect right now. I'll come back and trim it later. Good morning, Blanca. And I want to just get some quick color down on this background of this page that I'm going to create my pocket on. And so collage is such a great way to do that. Collage is such a great way to do that. I have some music paper here too, so some of the same things I used in my booklet yesterday, but I think for the background, I'm going to keep this really simple, right? And I was talking about this in my visual journaling club yesterday about keeping our visual journal pages simple. Yes, it's fun to have lots of time and I'm going to put this down with matte medium, and to create lots of crazy layers and to build them up. I love doing that. But also at times we need to kind of have that realization that when we want to create art that's meaningful, that's teaching us something about ourselves, that's rich in depth, then we can keep it really simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. And sometimes the beauty comes in the simplicity, not in the complexity of layers. Our lives are full and busy, and so the more opportunity we can take to create space for simplicity. All right. Because this is tissue paper, I'm being kind of gentle with it. It's going to be a little wrinkly on the page, which is typical for putting tissue paper down, even though this is it's kind of a nice thick tissue paper. It's not super, super thin. Making sure I get those edges down. And then once it's dry, I'll trim around these corners and edges. But just with that one simple piece of tissue paper, I have this beautiful background. I love that the colors here are complementary as well, which wasn't intentional. I've got some of that lime green on here. I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit of that matte medium over the top as well. Looks like I got a little paint coming off my scraper, which is adding some just little flecks of color. And while that is drying, I'm going to create the envelope. If I can get the lid back on my matte medium here. All right, so we're going to set that aside to dry. So this template was created for a class that I was teaching, and all right, my allergies have been horrible this week. So again, I apologize for my early morning froggy. Let me go take a sip of water and I'll be back in just a second. I'd love to hear how everyone else is this morning while I take a quick break. How's everyone else this morning? All right, some of the challenges of working early in the morning. For sure. So this one was actually created for another class I was teaching, watching the snowfall. Judy, that sounds lovely. It's going to be cold and windy here today, but no snow. So I'm not sure if this is the right size for this journal. So the way that I would start this process is to figure out what size my journal is. So this one is 9.5 by 7. So I'm going to make you guys do a little math in the early morning. So I don't want my pocket to fill the whole page, either width or height wise. I want it to kind of sit in the center of the page. I know that my pocket needs to be wide enough to fit my little booklet here. And I'm thinking this one is going to be about right. So this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And this particular envelope looks like just about 10.5 inches, right? Because it was created, like I said, to go in a journal that was a little bit smaller than this one. So we're gonna make it a little bit shorter than this one, and I'll give you the measurements. I'm thinking that 10 inches is gonna be about right. So if you're doing this, you're gonna wanna have this line be 10 inches long. So it's 10 inches, the height. The width of this should be about perfect for this page at all, and I know that it's going to fit my journal. And it's 4 inches wide. So 10 inches high by 4 inches wide. And then at about 3.5 inches up, we're going to create our fold lines. So the total length is 10 inches. This piece here is 3.5 inches where I put my little flaps, right? And these are each about, if you like precise measurements, these are about 1/2 inch on either side. And then I just sort of guessed at the curve lines. I guessed at the curve lines. And so you could cut this out of any paper that you choose to. And the dotted lines are where we're going to fold and create the envelope. It's where we're going to fold and create the envelope. And I realize that I don't have a blank piece of paper over here except tracing paper, so that's not going to work. And the tissue paper is too fine, so let me grab some paper real quick. So I just pulled a piece of paper out of my sketchbook to use as my model here. So I think this is probably like this is 11. This is just an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, which will work fine. So again, we're going to use our ruler And I'm going to mark off 4 inches wide, and I'm going to do that in a few different places on the page to make it easy to draw those straight lines. And I could just cut out my template and trace it, but that wouldn't be very useful for the rest of you, so I want you to see the whole process. So I'm going to get some straight lines. I'm going to move my journal so it's a little bit easier to draw here, so bear with me. And I'm just drawing these right now the complete length of the paper because I can trim the size of the page later. So I have 2 vertical lines 4 inches apart from each other. And about 3.5 inches from the top is going to be, this is my dotted line. So this is a cut line. And the dotted lines are fold lines just so that you can see where we're going to fold and where not to cut, right? So I'm redrawing those on here just to remind myself. And nobody's going to see these little tabs. They don't need to be perfect, so I'm not even using my ruler here because they're going to get folded to the back side when we create our envelope. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut the whole thing out. You made 2 of the pockets last night, Blanca. I love that. They're so much fun to make. Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and then I'm going to decide on the height of the pockets. So you'll see how this is all going to work in just a second, and then we're going to decorate our pockets. And actually this has a serrated edge at the top, so I'm just going to go with that because of the paper that I used. So I'm cutting along those solid lines. It's the easiest thing in the world to create, but they look so cute in our journals. So I'm going to fold this backwards along the dotted line just so I can see that dotted line and get a nice fold in there. I can see where I missed a little corner, so I'm just going to neaten that corner up a little bit. And then I'm going to fold this bottom flap up to the top, turn it over, fold along those dotted lines. I'm not going to glue it together yet, and I'll show you why in just a minute. But there we have this super simple, sweet little pocket that we're going to tuck our book into and put our inside of our art journal. But before I stick it down in my book, I want to make it a little festive. So you notice that kind of like when we're making the zine, so I'm seeing this front piece here and this inside piece here, right? So it is, and again, this is a technique I learned from my friend Andrea and a few other artists. It is super, super simple. I also love to make it really look like a library card and round those edges. Somewhere I have a little fabulous punch that I can't find that creates round edges, but it just makes it nice to round those edges. So I'm going to take some of this music paper and I'm going to glue that to the front of my pocket, right? So this is what's going to be up here behind where my book is going to go. So I'm going to start with putting some of this on here. And I'm just going to use a glue stick. And one of my favorite fast ways to do collage, and good morning, Kay, great to see you again. without having to worry about measuring or anything is to just stick the whole piece of paper down there, just like I did. Okay, I missed the corner. That's what I love about glue stick. It's forgivable. So move that up a little bit. And then I can cut it out or even take my ruler and just tear it along the edges. I like that kind of rough-edged look of tearing things. I also get a straighter line than I do with scissors. This works especially well with a metal ruler. So just trimming up those edges a little bit, rounding my corners. Again, adding collage is going to increase that integrity of the pages as well. So now I have this cute music paper. And I could have painted this whole thing as well, right? I could have taken the time, done the same process that we did yesterday, and had some fun with paint. But this is so painty all by itself, and I want it to be the centerpiece here and stand out. So I'm keeping the rest of the page around it pretty simple. And I'm thinking I'm loving those green polka dots that I saw in here. There's some multicolored polka dots. So again, we can look for how are we going to create some of that contrast. The triangles are kind of fun. Me too, I love music paper. I use music paper a lot in my journal. So let me go back to my journal page. This is where it's all going to end up. And look at how it's all going to fit together. So I'm looking at this thinking now as I'm seeing it here that maybe I'm going to add some color. Maybe I want to bring in continue this nice lime green color onto the page, but maybe once I get some collage paper down, I won't do that. So what I'm seeing is that the green is going to get a little bit lost in here. Those are kind of fun, but they don't go too much with that purple background up there, right? So I can just take a minute and this is one pad of paper. I know we have all of us lots of paper, so I'm really sort of digging those polka dots. And maybe I want to just stick with black and white. I'll be channeling my friend Andrea. Nope, I'm really digging these green polka dots. I love these little tiny pads of paper, and a friend sent me a whole box of stuff from cleaning out her studio, and there were several of these fun little pads in there. And okay, so what am I thinking? Am I liking the way that's looking? I think it's starting to come together. Kind of liking these black stars, but I don't know if there were any of those in here. Look at that cool piece. That could be a centerpiece for something else on this really nice piece of craft paper. There's red stars. Okay, I'm going to go with my first intuition here. And I can always add more paint to sort of pull these all together. And I'm kind of feeling like the purple isn't matching and that this needs to get painted over with red, right? So again, as always, I'm just sort of responding to the page. And I'm going to do the same thing here that I did on the other side. And I'm going to get my glue stick on here. I'm going all the way over the flaps as well, but just going right up to the fold line with my glue, making sure that I'm putting that glue on the right side of the paper. I'm going to get that pressed on there really well. Make sure it sticks nice. I'm going to fold that flap down, and then I'm going to do the same thing I did before. This paper's a little thick, so I might need to just fold that over a little bit, give it a little fingernail fold. And save that piece for something else. Then I'll take my scissors and trim around the edges. And the reason that you want to bevel your edges on the corners of your envelopes is so that it lies neat and flat on the back side and it's not bulky. So whenever you're folding over edges of paper on envelopes or journal covers, just adding that little bit of an angle is going to help you. And I'm going to actually take my bone folder, because now that I've added that paper, my paper's a lot thicker, so I'm going to take my bone folder and really crease these corners down nice and tight. And so now we have this super cute little envelope, but I definitely am going to want to, I think, fancy up the background a little bit so this is going to fit. Okay, so definitely want to bring some of that red into the background. I'm loving the polka dots, but I'm going to want it to stand out a little bit. So I'm going to play and paint over the top of that tissue paper and see what I can create to make this whole thing stand out before I put all this together. I am going to go ahead, I lost the lid to my glue stick. I am going to go ahead and glue the flaps of my envelope down. You could do this with glue stick because I've got this thicker scrapbook paper on here. I'm going to use some double stick tape. I love this stuff. I buy it by the roll on Amazon. It's Sook Wang, Sookwang. It is super, super strong double stick tape. My friend Andrea also sells it in sheets, which are awesome, on her online store at aworkofheartstudio.com. And I'm just going to cut those strips in half. And again, I'm going to take that bone folder, or if you don't have a bone folder, remember the handle of a pair of scissors makes a great substitute for a bone folder. I'm just going to really press those down. It just makes it easier to get that top little piece of paper off. I know you all know how to use double stick tape. And those were a little wide. It's sticking out a little bit, but I don't care because this is the back, right? And it's all gonna get stuck on here. All right, so I'm super happy with how that's looking. Again, thinking I might want to repeat that green or maybe some pink on the background of my envelope to just make it feel like it all goes together a little bit better. But we're going to set that aside for a minute and figure out what we can do with this page. I think it needs some red and some black. And I think I love the shapes, so maybe I'm just going to come right over these shapes with some red paint. This is a pyrrole red, so it's a little bit of an orangey red, but it's the same red that I used yesterday. And just using those lines as my guide, I'm going to come right over that purple. And remember, not all of this is going to show under the envelope, but I think that this one small change is going to kind of just pull it all together for me. I love this pink heart. I'm almost wondering if I can find another one and put it on top of my polka dots here. So again, none of this is complicated, none of the materials, not too many layers, but I'm just trusting the playfulness of it. And I was thinking about my 6 pillars of a radiant life, one of which is deep connection. And one aspect of deep connection is that connection to self, is that connection to self. And what I love about affirmations is that they remind us to pause. They can be used as journaling prompts to really look at, how am I treating myself? Am I being mindful? And what a difference it made just by adding that red over the purple to make all of that fit in there better. I'm even liking it better than the pink. So maybe I'm going to come down here on the background. And now my colors match, right? I've got my nice lime green moving up here into a little bit yellow. I might even, it's white right there. So maybe I'm going to come in and add just a few little highlights of white on here to brighten it all up. And again, I might add a little bit of pink if I can find. All of these sheets of paper are different, so I don't know if I would find that. It's probably an accidental. Oh, there is one. Let's see. Wondering if that, I want those polka dots to show through. It may be too pink. And I was talking about this in my visual journaling club class last night too, about when you're working with collage to be patient with yourself and try things on. Sometimes it's really fun to engage in what one of my mentors, Kat Carasello, calls quick fire creative, where you set a timer for 15 minutes, you grab some images and some paint, and you just put them all together onto a substrate and see what happens. And it's always magical. But sometimes we need to just let images sort of have a life of their own. Nope, don't like the heart. I will save that for something else. It's a little bit too big and I really love my polka dots. So I am going to keep this just as it is. I'm even going to keep that music paper just as it is as well. And grab my white paint. Oops, dragging my ribbon through the white paint. So I'm going to come in with a smaller brush because I've got some smaller lines and marks over here. And maybe this corner over here is going to be white. So we move that white around the page. We're going to have this be intentionally white instead of just sort of white. And all of a sudden, it's a more abstract, interesting page that sort of matches the other colors on here. Just have some fun playing with that. Might even come in with my sequin waist if I can find it. By the time I get to Thursday, plus with 2 art classes I taught yesterday, my desk has exploded and I don't know where anything is. I don't know if anyone else struggles with that problem as well. Okay, I am not seeing my sequin waste, which means I carried it off somewhere or tried to clean off my desk. But look at this. Here is this fun piece of paper and it has some squares on it. So let's try some squares instead of some circles. And You can use anything as a stencil or a stamp. In fact, I'm working on a new class that's going to come out later in February called Found Objects. It's going to be all about going on a scavenger hunt and just using what you can find around the house or your garden. Look what a cute stencil that made, just using where I pulled off the piece of paper from making my envelope. Get a little more white paint here. Move that around in a few different places on the page. And again, just getting some of our own marks. So I took a piece of tissue paper and completely made that my own, right? Completely made that my own. I've still got that some pink showing there, but I think I'm okay with that. So super simple, super cute, super easy to create, super fun to get creative and just figure out what is around you. So now I'm thinking, okay, do I want to add some black to the background? Do I want to paint out the rest of that heart and not have that little bit of pink showing through? I think I do. A little bit more of that red. And having put matte medium over that top of the tissue paper allows me to paint over it without destroying the tissue, right? So it's a really, again, I've said it before, I'm repeating myself about matte medium or clear gesso over the tops of things creates a surface that it's easier to paint on. A surface it's easier to paint on. Still wanting some dots on here. So this time I'm just using the end of my paintbrush and dipping that in that paint, and it's creating some interesting marks. A more high flow paint is generally better for making dots, but we're just getting a little bit of play down on the page here. Just using what I have right in front of me, And then just coming back to that envelope one more time. Fun, playful page. Okay, I am so good at throwing things away when they get to be small scraps. I am not a person that likes to keep things. I get overwhelmed by the too many bits of paper flowing around. But when you do have paper, use it in collage, use it in underlayers, make collage master sheets. Like, don't let it just sit around. It's easy also to want to hold on to things for too long, thinking that we might need them at some point, right? And it's good to let go of things. Use them up. If it's something you really love, make a photocopy of it. I posted a photo on my personal Facebook page yesterday of one of my son Connor's sacred circle designs. And I had added hand-drawn elements and some Zentangle patterns. And it was really pretty as it is, and it was really torn between, do I color it or do I not? I don't know why I'm not liking that white. Um, so I just put it on Facebook and asked for opinions, right? And everyone said to leave it black and white and add shading, which was my own intuition, but I was doubting myself. So sometimes, if you don't know what the next step on a piece is and you are on social media, just put it out there and ask people, what should I do with this? What should I add to this? Okay, I'm looking. Well, we'll try see how we do with our handy dandy Stabilo. I'm going to come in with just a little bit of black. It's amazing how just a little bit of black, a little bit of white can really make things pop on the page. And it's bringing in that additional color that I was using already, because my book was basically red and white, and there were some little pops of yellow in it from this fun tissue paper. So I don't think it needs a lot of the black. So I'm noticing that, these are too even. There's 4, not 5. So I'm going to want to bring black in maybe just a few more places so it feels more like a frame around the edges. So my eyes are sort of flowing a little better around that. And a fun way to do that is I can just, a little too much water on there. I also like the matte medium and the Stabilo. You can just kind of wash it all off too. So I'm just going to add a little bit of black around these squares. It's going to make them look a little bit like they're popping off the page. And again, it'll help us kind of repeat that feeling of a frame. And turn my page around so I'm not dragging my hand through the ink. I'm going to the bottom and now the left, the right when it was right side up. And when we think about color stories, right, we want to think about how is our eye flowing around the whole page. And so the more that we make sure that we don't have spots of color in just one place on a design, or if we do, it's one dramatic place that is intended to really catch attention. But if you have too much of a color in one place, the viewer's eye can get stuck and they're not seeing the whole story. So let's see how we feel about that story. So it feels a little bit better, right? I've still got, some little bits of black. I want a little bit more of this drama down here at the edge. So I'm just going to dip that in the water again. And maybe just a few more of these little dots around. I don't know why I always tend to put dots in little groups of 3s. I'm going to maybe interrupt this over here a little bit, which feels kind of fun. Simple color palette, simple materials, not a crazy, chaotic page like many of my pages are, but one that makes me happy. And I'm even thinking, okay, let's set that one aside over here to dry for a second. And I'm thinking I still have all these affirmations that maybe I'm going to put one of those that I haven't used onto the front of my folder here as well, which feels kind of fun. So I love this one. I love and accept everything about myself. I love and accept everything about myself. I'm just going to cut those apart. And that's going to make this just feel a little bit more finished. Handy dandy little glue stick. Getting that more or less centered on there. What's everybody else working on? I'm over here working and talking away and playing. What are you working on this morning? Are you working along with me, or are you just painting on your own? All right, so it feels like it flows and it matches. I'm happy with that. Just move that one over a little bit. I started reading a book this week. I read a lot. I'm going to take a pencil and just add that same little shadow under here, called Essentialism. And don't you love, Nikki, how everything is paint overable? Nikki said working along but didn't like my background, so it's getting lots of layers now. Nothing like a good coat of gesso to white out everything and start over again. But I started reading a book called Essentialism. It's been around for a while. It's been on my list for a while. Love that, Judy. I hope you do try some collage, and feel free to email me pictures or send it to me on Facebook Messenger. All right, now this page is feeling super cute and complete. My Stabilo Marxall is still pretty wet there. And I'm going to use that same double stick tape to adhere my envelope. You can also use glue stick or even matte medium, but you definitely want to give it a little bit of extra time to dry. So I'm just going to use a little bit of this double stick tape. And I bought a big roll. It lasts forever. And I do trim it up and use smaller bits and pieces of it. I use it in bookmaking a lot. So next week, I want to talk about one of the pillars of my 6 pillars of a radiant life, which is deep work. And work doesn't mean your job or your career, especially if you're retired. But to me, it's about your contribution, your purpose, and your meaning, how you create a more fulfilling life at any age and stage, and how we get distracted from that. And it's actually ties and dovetails neatly back into this whole idea of self love, self acceptance. When we have deep and meaningful work, whether that's our career, volunteer work, a creative hobby, the thing that brings us joy, it just keeps us so much more present and engaged in our lives. And so we're going to talk about deep work, and I think we're going to make an unfolding timeline kind of book next week, which will be super fun, and we'll work in that same book all week. And I also want to remind everyone who's listening that next weekend, not this coming weekend, but the 18th and the 20th, is my color coded emotions workshop, which I'm really excited about. Thanks to those of you that have already signed up for that. We're going to be talking about the connection between color and emotions, creating our own color wheel of emotions, and then how we can pull that color into our daily life to boost our moods, to add meaning and richness to our lives. So I'm super excited about that workshop. All right, and there I have a sweet little self-love zine in a pretty little page. Everything is kind of matchy matchy, which is not my normal, but it feels really good and feels really honoring of myself. And when I think about colors and what colors means to me, I talked about this yesterday. You know, red for me is definitely about passion. And passion can be loving passion, it can be fury, right? But it's about passion and energy. And this beautiful lime green for me is always about spring and growth and renewal. So those are some of the things we're going to look at in color coded emotions is what do those colors mean to us? What do those colors mean to us? I'm almost feeling like I still want some color on that envelope, but I'm going to let it sit for a while. I'm going to let that Stabilo get really, really dry. And I am going to call this complete for today. So here we have our pretty page, our sweet little zine, all about really loving up on ourselves. And that gets tucked so neatly right into our little journals. And I love a big chunky journal. I'm not going to close this because I'll get black all over this page, but then it's going to make this nice really rich journal, and it feels like this journal is filling up so much. And the Hamsa was from January, so you can find the video of how I created this if you're curious and haven't seen that one over on another page. And that's it. Recreate the tissue paper that was, oh, I love that, Blanca. That's so fun. I have so much of it. I could probably mail you a sheet of it and share the abundance. But that's it for this week. I can't believe it's Thursday already. So we had a rich and abundant week of talking about self love. And I think I must have done that in a couple of different journals. But we looked at our inner child, we looked at some deep reflection and creating this kind of crazy silhouette of a page. Get some rest. So I actually have nothing going on. I have no clients or calls tomorrow and nothing this weekend except watching the Super Bowl with my hubby and dinner tomorrow with my parents. So I have a lovely abundance of time coming my way. And I can guarantee you that even though I won't be live with you for the next few days, I will still be right here every single morning painted in my PJs because it's my happy, happy place to be here doing this. So thank you all so much for joining me. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. This is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette, where we talk about all things life, love, art, and visual journaling. I'll see you all next Monday. Have an amazing rest of your week.